everybody.
There we
It
go.
is in progress. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Maccabi USA Sports Show. Thanks for joining, Arnie Fielko. Arnie, you can wave now.
Hello, everybody.
It's been a long time coming, a really long time coming, and it's great for us to be here. Arnie and I were just reminiscing. I think we went on the air in 2020, the beginning of COVID, when we couldn't see each other, touch each other, be close to each other. And it really, this gathering every week, every couple of weeks, really created a community of love, of Judaism, connection, our love of sports. And I have to say, as Arnie said, the world has dramatically changed since then. There's a war. October 7th happened. I'm hoping that we will continue to get together and be able to utilize this gathering as a way for us to remain connected, talk about sports and we love, and just be together. In addition to the war in Ukraine, that also has happened. And then Arnie, as you may or may not know, has 2 Ukrainian daughters. At least they were born there. And he's very involved in incredible activity. And maybe before we go today, Arnie, you can talk a little bit about that as well. Tonight, we're happy to welcome a very special guest. And I'll tell you a little bit about him. But before I do, I'm going to give you all an assignment if you would accept it for today. This is a test, and sometime during the program, I'll come back to you. I've done a bunch of research on this. You can do your own. But I'd like you to all come up with 1 or 2 athletes. They could be professional, they could be collegiate, maybe they're even you, who defied all the odds and ended up competing at either at a relatively high level, a collegiate level, an elite professional level. Because honestly, that's who Sam Salz is. He has beaten all the odds. He's playing in a sport that said, we will not let you play because you've never played high school football. The fact that he happens to be an Orthodox Jew is just on top of that, because I don't need to tell you when most collegiate football games happen. And yet Sam decided at a young age that he was going to play college football. All of us have been that kid, Sam. I just want to let you know, in some way or another. My kids wanted to be, they were going to play for the Denver Nuggets when they were young, and they were only going to play in the home games because they didn't want to miss their families on the away games. But yet you have done that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to hear your amazing journey. And as we do it, I'd love to all of us think about, what family of athletes has Sam joined? The ones who we didn't think make it. Like, did anyone really think that Tom Brady, drafted in the 7th round, would be the Tom Brady we know today? Or that Michael Jordan, who didn't make his high school basketball team when he was 15, thought his career was over? No, they went on to greatness. And Sam's only begun his greatness in so many different ways, which we'll hear today. Arnie, I know that you 2 met in New Orleans, which is pretty special. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your meeting and kick off the conversation?
Yeah, thank you, Donna. And again, it's great to be with everyone. It's been 4 years and lots of sad moments, a lot of happy moments. And we hope that this show will lead us into Maccabi 2025. And all of us will be able to get to Israel and celebrate after what has been a very difficult 8 or 9 months. So I got the opportunity to meet Sam about 2 months ago. Sam was a guest speaker at a modern Orthodox synagogue in New Orleans, and it was a packed house and such an interesting story. And Sam, we're a Jewish sports show. I don't know if the analogy to Rudy at Notre Dame is actually appropriate tonight, but it's the closest thing that I have. So why don't we start a little bit? Give us a little bit of background, where you came from, your sports background, your Jewish background, and then we'll start to get into, the Aggie story in Texas A&M.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is, I'm from Philadelphia. I was born and bred in Center City, Philadelphia.
Yeah, all the Philadelphia people. This is probably a big Philadelphia crowd. You could all cheer now. Go ahead.
I went to Orthodox Jewish schools my entire life. And through that time, I did participate in sports, whether it was outside of school or within the school. And by the time I got to high school, we didn't have a football team. It's just a commonality between, I think, almost every Jewish school.
Let me just say, is there a Jewish school that has a football team? Is there one that you know of?
There is. So so flag football is starting to get really big. In terms of tackle, my roommate at Texas A&M, he actually was in a 6-man football league in Texas. So he went to a pluralistic Jewish school, and they were in 6-man football.
Okay, but
So
not like 11 on 11 like we see today.
no.
Yeah, most Jewish moms are not going to let their kids play football. You know what I'm saying? Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so that was my experience or lack thereof within the sport because just upbringing basis. And obviously my freshman year of high school, the Eagles won the Super Bowl, so that was always a really big motivating factor. But that's pretty much what my experience with football was up until I even got to college. The first time I put on pads was in college, and I played sports my entire life. Aside from that, I was in gymnastics from when I was really, really young until my final year in high school. I played tennis, so I went in between all of that. There was soccer and baseball and basketball and just everything else in between. So that's a little bit about me. That's my background, and I'm gonna pass it back to.
Hey, Sam, talk a little bit before I turn over to talk about your Jewish background. Were parents, grandparents, how religious as a child? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So both my parents came from the Soviet Union, and I grew up with my mom, my grandparents, at least in the house. And my mom, because my mom became religious, she was a Baal Teshuva. And it was very, very interesting because I grew up with her. She was religious, but in the same house with my grandparents who weren't as observant. So it was definitely a very interesting upbringing. But then again, I was also in Jewish school, and we would go to synagogue on the weekends. It was the pretty I would say in certain aspects it was like a typical observant upbringing. In certain aspects it was also very not typical because again I did grow up in Center City, Philadelphia, which when you're looking at like an observant community of kids, there wasn't much of. So it was like me and like the rabbi's kid and like maybe like one other kid. That's a pretty much, I mean, the very, very, very basic explanation of my Jewish upbringing.
So you said your family's from the Soviet Union, but you were born here, yes?
Yeah, so I was born here. Both my parents were from the Soviet Union.
Very cool. Have you been there?
I
You haven't. You haven't. And now it's probably not a good time to go, Sam. So we wouldn't advise that as well.
probably.
I have a question for you. Before that, say I think it's been brought up tonight. The Phillies are playing. It's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. I think. Deb Lichtenfeld's Zach Hyman was a Maccabi Canada alum. That's it's inspirational. And in addition, it is the College World Series final game. Texas A&M, those Aggies of yours. I hope you have that on in the background. Who are they playing? Oh, Tennessee, correct?
Yep. And we have 2 Jewish players on the team.
Really? I'm so shocked. Like I just don't think of the Aggies as being this creator of Jewish athletes, but I guess that it is.
It's
So
funny because,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, but it's funny because the women's tennis actually won the national championship this year, and I think the girl who like sealed off the winning shot was Israeli.
Really?
Wow.
Kevin Yegelwell, our unofficial official producer, and Arnie and Dan, we've got work to do here.
Got to get her on the show. Got to get her on the show.
Kids on the show for sure. Anyway, so Dan, if there's an update on any of the scores, just feel free to give us a little signal, and you can be our, you know what I mean? You'll be our studio update.
And our man Zach Hyman is wearing tie tonight. He's number 18, as he is every night. So I know there's a lot of Canadian fans, including moi, on the Zoom tonight. So keep us updated, okay?
Well, excuse me, Arnie, but I live in Florida, and
I know, Donna. I know.
Okay. I know. All right, so Sam, I read your story before I knew that I was even going to meet you, and I was like, wow. Division I rules at Texas A&M says you cannot play college football unless you played high school football. That didn't seem to deter you, and as we know, didn't stop you. So how did you prepare yourself?
Yeah, I would say that a good upbringing with Talmudic education definitely prepared myself to bypass.
I got to tell Bill Belichick that, but go ahead.
so the primary was they stated, well, in the rules to try out was must have played varsity football, which and I didn't. I was blessed that I was given the opportunity. I didn't have to try out. I guess, I mean, like in the very basis, like if you can't go through the traditional way, you got to go around in the most untraditional way. And what I did was, you know, essentially do my best to A, connect myself, and then B, work as hard as I could, and show that I was willing to do things that, you know, most people weren't willing to do. And that's where I believe I hold my linchpin in it. Again, you know, it really all comes from God. I'm very blessed that I was even given the knowledge to do or even think of that. But what I did was I went to the Texas A&M facility. There used to be a field outside of there, and I used to train pretty much every day outside of this field, aside from Shabbat, obviously, and then on Sunday I would also give my legs a rest. But Monday through Friday, I would train on this field, and it would be drills, it would be whatever it was. I timed it up, so I would figure out when the team was training, and I would come out before they were training. I would leave after they were done training. And, you know, when you come and you do that one day, 2, 3 days, that's one thing. But, you know, I came out for 9 months. I had been training for almost a year at the point where I had made the team. However, I had found that field about 2.5 to 3 months in. So it was a little bit different from like the training that I was doing a little bit before then. But that is the primary thing that I did, was train on the field, obviously, aside from the fact that I was training in the gym. The other thing was I went to the head coach's radio show. And the first time I was just trying to go see if I could watch the tryout to see what I could actually train for, because I was just going into it, you know, in a sense of shooting in the dark. And the lower level employees at the time were not giving me either a chance or not giving me clear answers on how I could get into watch that tryout. And I was blessed that one night I was watching YouTube, and the head coach's radio show, which I had found out in that video was live, came up on my feed. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go down and see if I can ask him directly. And when I did, he actually, he actually said yes. But on top of that, I created a relationship. That was probably the most important thing that I did within that process, was go up to him and look him in the eyes and shake his hand and tell him I was going to walk on. And obviously when someone is 5'6",
Yeah, I bet you Jimbo Fisher was pretty excited by that.
Yeah. And so that was the first time Coach Fisher and I met. And there's a video somewhere out on the internet, like in the intermission between the different segments of the show, is just me showing up and then like taking off my yarmulke and asking him to sign.
All right, so Sam, what you got to do is you got to make sure you have that video for your archives, okay? Because this is definitely going to be a movie one day. But before I switch back to Arnie, let me just ask you this. You practiced at the same time as the Texas A&M football team practiced, and you did the same drills as they were doing?
So it wasn't the same drills that they were doing.
Did they know you were there?
Yeah, well, at the time, ironically, this changed essentially almost right after I got there. But at the time, they had to walk through the parking lot that was overlooking the field that I was on to go to their practice facility, because the practice facility at that time wasn't directly connected to the building. They had to like put pads on and then walk to the park. And, you know, there I was before practice and after practice, training different things. A friend of mine came, and my friend Alex and I would throw about twice a week. Then I would do my own drills. Some days were more intense, some days were lighter loads, to obviously give my body a break, because football, you know, it's a little bit of a different sport when it comes to those things. It's not like you can practice, it's like basketball, like you can practice shooting for hours on low sleep, like like Kobe Bryant. The football, you know, can, if you don't take care of your body, you can tear it up pretty badly. And, you know, that was unfortunately something that I learned. But some days were lower load to get more muscle memory, because at least in my philosophy, I figured that, you know, if I did things slow, I would be better at doing them faster. And there were some days like that. Some days I was alone and it was just me, and I was, in some respects, throwing the ball to myself. I would use my shoes as cones, and anything I could find that I could use as a cone, I would use. There was a day where, at the time I was training to be a running back, I took the trash cans that were left over from the tailgate the prior week, and I put them out as an offensive line, and I practiced weaving between the trash cans. but I pretty much went and practiced everything, and I did my best to be there before they started training and leave after they were done training, which was something I deem obviously as important in terms of just showing who you are. But on top of that, did genuinely believe I was part of the team at the time that I was doing those things. I think sometimes you just kind of have to stop asking for things to happen, and you just have to act as if they've already happened. You got to dress for the job that you want.
Amazing. Sam, let me ask you a couple questions. First of all, as you were growing up, I know you're from Philly. I know you're probably an Eagles fan, but was there somebody in the NFL, Eagles or any other team that you kind of emulated and looked up to and wanted to be? And talk a little bit about Texas A&M. I mean, you set the bar pretty high. I mean, you could have gone to D2, D3. You could have gone to an East Coast D1, but you picked the SEC. That's pretty ambitious. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I mean, it wasn't that big in my house. Like watching football wasn't that big in my house. Yeah, I really only began to understand football when I got to college. Like obviously, Eagles fan, Philadelphia sports fan, through and through. When I remember when the Phillies won the World Series and lost the World Series the subsequent year, and then especially when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I mean, that was insane. But I would say, like, growing up, there wasn't much. I really started truly getting into it in college. And however, despite that, there was always something in me that for some reason, like, believed that I had to play college football. And I talk a little bit about this when I go speak, but it was just something that I believed that I had to do. And sometimes you don't know where those thoughts or those beliefs come from, because obviously in my upbringing, it wasn't just a large commonality. My parents are Soviet Union, so hockey was like what my dad always dreamed was that I was going to be a hockey player. Especially because his mother and his grandmother didn't let him play, and there just wasn't like a big thing going up. Baseball was pretty big when I was growing up. Obviously, again, the other thing was being in Jewish schools. People were doing fantasy. We'd play in recess, but we didn't really like play tackle. But so growing up, there wasn't much in terms of like players that I look up to. Nowadays, I have certain players that I look up to, and I intend to emulate. I would say that the primary two are Deontay Hardy, who is on the Ravens now, I believe. He was another 5'6" receiver. He actually came from a D2 school, and he's been in the NFL. I think he's going into year 6. Then on top of him is Deontay Hardy. Right now, it's been a long day.
That's all right. No worry. Talk a little bit about Texas A&M, Sam.
Yeah.
About selecting A&M.
Yeah. The last other one was Julian Edelman. So again, stories just of certain receivers. But anyway, so Texas A&M. I picked A&M because I love the school. I love the traditions. I genuinely love the network of the school, just the people. And the Jewish community. Obviously, the Jewish community was primed for where I was going to go to school, obviously, coming from the background that I came from. And that's why I ended up picking Texas A&M. And then when I got to Texas A&M, something began to strike me that I had thought that I had earlier, that in my younger years was coming back. And as I began to become more interested in college football, and as I went to my first college football game and actually saw the game of football played live, that wasn't like Central versus Northeast High.
No, it wasn't, Sam. That's for sure.
It was. I began to close the distance between what I thought was on the field and what I believed that I could do. And that was when I decided to go full force with what I had thought all those years earlier, which is playing college football.
Yeah. So hey, Sam, so I just want to say this. We have a college AD on. Jeff Shulman's joined us, and he's seen a lot of collegiate athletes through his day come through his program. The unlikeliness right? The unlikelihood, I guess, would be about of what you decided you would try to do, what you've accomplished is truly extraordinary. So usually in these cases, there's a group of people that might be supportive of you, but there's probably many more that said, "Are you crazy, Sam? What are you doing? This will never happen." Which one of those did you hear louder? And were you ever deterred in your passion to move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was incredibly selective with who I even told I was doing this. That's the truth of the matter. I told
Uh-huh.
very few people, and those were the only people were the people who I knew would believe in me. I didn't want any of the negative energy coming in and having an influence on what I believe I was going to do. Because at the end of the day, I'm a big believer. I'm a man of faith fundamentally, and I truly believe that if you're you're supposed to do something and you're doing it for the right reasons, that it will happen. And ultimately, that's also the type of people I choose to surround myself with are people who have those beliefs. So thankfully, the naysayers they weren't there. There was the people found out that I was even going forward on a goal like that. The rest of the people, about 3 days before found out, before I made the team, they were kind of mocking me at lunch. But 3 days later, I got a call that I made the team. So
So how did that happen? Right. What I mean, like, first of all, and Jimbo Fisher, your friend, didn't he get fired in the middle of all this?
yeah,
Right,
unfortunately,
they found out he said you can make the team. That's what happened, right?
no, that's what happened.
No, I
No,
know. Actually, we know Jimbo because he came out of Florida State. We know that's not what happened. But he ended up also leaving. So was that like, oh my goodness, what happened? The guy that I have a relationship with now is gone. What am I going to do?
yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is like this. When Coach Fisher got fired, I was, to be frank, I didn't sleep for like 3 nights.
I can understand.
And there was a lot to, I mean, there was a lot to do that. One, he was the guy who brought me on, but like I had a relationship with the guy. I would talk to him during practice. He always gave me encouragement, and I truly loved Coach Fisher. There was a lot, that his staff. I loved the wide receiver coach that we had at the time. That's not to knock anything out. Not to I love the wide receiver coach that I have now also. But it's just, I spent all that time building a relationship with those people, and as far as I know, those people like me. So like at the time, it was it was a kind of a wild thing. And on top of that, there was an employee on his chief of staff at the time, or the associate athletic director, who's Jewish. I would put on to fill in with almost every day, and we learned Torah together. And like on top of like that was kind of like, ironically like that was also one of the things I was incredibly distraught about, because it was just there was such like a familial feel, and it's like then it's like everything becomes in a sense uncertain. But most of it was just because it was less about the uncertainty and more about the fact that I truly cared about the people that I wasn't going to see again, and the way the sport, well, at least for a while. I'm sure at some point in my life we'll cross paths again, but like that was just it was a little bit, it made me a little bit distraught. And obviously I'm a man of faith, like I mentioned before, and I knew that everything would be okay. But in that time, there was a lot going on, and it was very, very interesting period of time.
Sam,
Right.
talk a little bit about your teammates. A football locker room is a very diverse group of individuals. I assume there weren't a whole lot of Jews that were in that locker room, but how did they react to you? Were they curious? And how did you react to them? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a very interesting dynamic, I think.
yeah. Well, fundamentally, most of those guys at the time that I had made it on the team were witness to me practicing on the field outside, and they knew about it. And when I finally had made it on, they were really excited because they're like, the guy from the field finally made it on. So
But
that was
how did that happen? Like you said, oh, I thought, what happened? Did you know it was going to happen?
I had faith it was going to happen, but also
I understand, but like, tell us what happened. Like, who told you?
Yeah. So I had gone to the radio show, and they didn't end up we didn't have a fall tryout. And I asked the head coach, I said, what happened? And he referred me over to, well, there was his assistant and then the associate athletic director at the time. And after the radio show, I talked to them. And the associate athletic director, the Jewish guy, he told me that they were at max capacity in terms of roster size. He said if anybody quit, they would let me know. And that is how it happened, pretty much. 3-4 weeks in, I got a text from him. And that was it. And that was it. I was literally on the team.
What was your reaction getting that text? I mean, it must have been incredibly excited, huh?
I was incredibly elated when that text came in. I put on a suit and I went to synagogue.
Good for you.
That was the first reaction.
Good for you. So, Deb wanted to know, who are the few people that you knew who fully supported you and told you that you told about your ambitions? Who was that small cadre of people that you trusted?
So that small cadre of people was first and foremost, well, the first person I told is my friend Clay. And then obviously my friend who would throw with me, my best friend, and then amongst all of those, my parents.
And what was it? Okay, so what were your parents' reactions?
So my dad, I told first, and he was immediately supportive. My mom, I waited to tell because I didn't know how she was going to react.
Right. And
then I told her in about, I think this was after I got to the radio show, I told her. And I told her, but then I told her the reason that I was doing. And once I told her the reason, she was like, yeah, I totally support you.
So that was good. So Sam, there's so many questions more. And please, everybody, thanks, Deb, for that one. Put in your questions if you have them. All right, you make the team. When was this?
This was October of 2022.
Okay, so you've now played. And I know that you can't play on a lot of these games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you are practicing every practice, correct?
Yep.
All right. You get out there now. It's not you by yourself. It's you with some very large athletes who have been pumping iron for a very long time. And they're going to hit you. Of course, you're going to hit them. What was the reality? Like, what was you're now on the field with these guys. What's your emotions?
Yeah, I mean, the basic reality was I didn't know anything about football.
Yeah, I know. You're with these,
Exactly. So before they let me and take an actual snap, like there was an adjustment period. There was an adjustment period because I actually had to learn things about a sport that I knew nothing about on an internal level, but B is also just an incredibly complex sport to understand in the first place. So that's how it was. But then everything just kind of happened gradually. Like first, okay, you start running the routes, you start catching, okay, you're playing, you're doing thud. That's a lot of the practices at that time were thud. There wasn't any tackling in that practice.
Yeah, but you at some moment you had to realize that those guys were going to tackle you. Yes?
Yeah, of course. And
okay.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's just you don't think.
You're better off if you don't think.
Sometimes in this sport, especially, like if you overthink, it's a problem. If you overthink on your plays, if you overthink, when you're getting the call, whatever it is, when you overthink, it's a problem. I'm not going to stand out here and say that there are guys that are quite large, and hopefully you don't get tackled by that. I mean that's the goal of any player, to just not get tackled.
But there's this thing, Sam. There's this basketball player. Her name is Caitlin Clark, and what we're seeing is the Caitlin Clark effect, where like the veterans in the league or on the team want to let her know who they are, so she understands. You don't have any of those on your team, do you?
Thank God, no.
So we have an
Yeah,
important.
I think it's a little bit different. I mean, I think in some sports they do that. I feel like in the WNBA, it's been like a little bit more of like a mess and like with like how they're like taking in the new guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that, and I don't know if it's like that in every single sport.
Wait, hold on a second. I think Dan Kirk
Yep.
wants
So
to
we
give an
have.
update.
I'm a little late on the first update of the Panthers goal by Chris Verhage at 4:13 or 4:27 rather. However, it is now 1-1. The Oilers have come back with the goal at 6:44, and we have a 1-1 game in the first period in the NHL in Game 7. Let me just real quick switch. And we'll get an update on the Texas A&M Tennessee. Tennessee has a 3-1 lead in the bottom of the fourth.
Sam, we don't usually interrupt this important sports show for these scores, but tonight you just picked a bad date. You got two deciding games, so bear with us here. Bear with us.
We picked it. No, it's all in the spirit of sport. This is a live sports show. It's good. It's good, Arnie. It's all good.
All right.
It's all good.
So Sam,
go ahead.
Sam, you made the team in October 22.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the 23 season. So talk a little bit about your role. Did you I can't remember from our talk. Did you suit up for any of the either home or away games?
Yeah, it's 23 or 22.
Either one actually.
So yeah, I suited up for all the ones I was eligible to suit up for. Which my first season, my first game, my high school hadn't finished the NCAA certification, so we played Ole Miss in that first season I was there. I just was jersey only. But though when we upset number 5 LSU in the last game of the season, that was the first time I wore my uniform fully. It was a great game to suit up for as my first one. And then last season we had 3 games. We played against New Mexico State. I was there for that, and Mississippi State, which was the game right before Coach Fisher got fired. And then we had a bowl game against Oklahoma State, all of which I stood up for.
Huh.
Wow, that's really cool. So tell me, what's it like? Is it the realization of your dreams here? I mean, it's one thing to be in the stadium, which is amazing with college football, especially SEC, but you're on the field and you're dressed, the whole thing.
Yeah, I would say the first couple times it was definitely surreal, and it's always an amazing rush to run out onto the field, run out, and I will say that I think there's an interesting effect that what happens is like after you accomplish a goal and you're like, what's next? I think that's pretty much the main thing that began to take me over, as it got later, because obviously the first times, for sure. And then, you're like, okay, I have to do something more. I have to do more. I have to do more. And I have to be better and better and better. And that's ultimately, it was like, okay, well, like I've suited up, but now, I have to play. We play. Okay, it's enough to go in for one play. Okay, I have to do something significant. And, there's a lot of things that, I still want to put out on the field that I'm working towards. But obviously, they take a lot, especially from from where I come from.
Yeah. So what is your next? What is your next, Sam?
Well, it's funny. I ultimately, I can't say for sure.
Okay.
But the next steps that I would like to take, obviously everything I want to do is to inspire people. And whether that's, on the field at Texas A&M or at the next level, that's ultimately my goal. I mean, the primacy for me is to inspire people. And the medium that I hold that through is football. So whatever is next on the totem pole that's going to do the most for people, that's what I want to do.
Hey Sam, let me ask you this question, because I want to get back to that point, because obviously there's a lot of young people that are going to be inspired by your story. But before we get that, I mean, again,
and old ones, Arnie, I just might add, and old ones.
And old ones too, yes. I mean, you're playing and attending a school at one of the most iconic stadiums in our country. I mean, if anybody's ever been to Kyle Field and the 12th man, I'm sure people have seen that on television. What's it like being in that tunnel? Because I don't think any of us could relate to that, but when you're in the tunnel ready to run out on the field with how many people, what's the capacity of 80, 90,000?
105.
Oh, 105. Okay. Well, what is that feeling like? Is that a high of all highs?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, you get very hyped up. I've ran out in plenty of halftime. I only got to run out twice at the beginning of the game just because of where the time fell out in regards to Shabbat. And that was when we played against Mississippi State, was the first time I got to run out in the beginning of the game from the tunnel. And it was, I mean, I was obviously super excited because it was the first time I got to do it and super hyped up. And my coach at the time, Coach Craig, he was in the back hyping me up because, it was the first time I got to do it. And I mean, it is awesome. And then against Oklahoma State, it was a little bit different because we weren't at home. But man, running out in the Kyle Field is a crazy experience.
Yeah, I'm not sure what can replicate that. I don't know when you get to the Bema, when you become a rabbi, if that's going to get you there, but maybe it will, Sam. I have a question for you. Thank you, Noah Friedman. Appreciate you. Noah says he lives in Montana. Wow. That has a little Jewish community. Being in College Station, where you've talked about your decision to go because of the Jewish community, which actually does sound unusual to many of us because we wouldn't think of the Deep South or Texas A&M for that. But here's the question. How have you been able to keep your faith and not lose your Jewish identity? Thanks, Noah.
I mean, I think at the crux of the answer to that question is upbringing. I mean, the way I was brought up was obviously very interesting. Again, my family came from the Soviet Union, so there wasn't a, how I would say, it wasn't like this is everything that you do and you can't do anything else. My mom was the Orthodox one in the family. Everybody else was former Soviet Union and mindset former Soviet Union. And I was, constantly challenged. And I had to, defend my beliefs. I think that obviously kind of like strengthened that. But on top of that, I was proud of who I am. And getting, coming out and getting to be an ambassador of who you are, which, whenever you put on the kippah, you're an ambassador, whether you like it or not. I think that's something that I hold very near and dear, and is part of one of the things that I love about Judaism. And, just spreading that love with other people, something that I love doing. And I think all of that is something that contributes overall into me being strong in who I am. I don't think that you can separate any of those things because, it's very upbringing, how your parents, how your parents treated Judaism in regard to you in your upbringing is very, very important. And going to different, I was in modern Orthodox high school and I got to see, obviously kids who come from different backgrounds, to see how people, how it caused people to act in a certain way was very, very, very interesting. It's something that I took a lot of notice in. So I believe, in certain respects, upbringing, but then again, like a lot of what a person does is themselves. And, I learn Torah every day. I make it, that's a priority of mine. Make the priority to connect to God. And even, the times that I don't feel as connected, I just know that there is a time that I will be. So I really try to make the effort to just be strong in who I am. I think that effort's more than half the battle.
That's great. And there's another question here. Brian, I love this. I don't think you're off topic here. We're talking football. We're talking Aggie football. And we have a member of the team right here with us. So Brian wants to know what the locker room and you thinks of Mike Elko. Have you spent any time around him? And what's the future of the 12th man or person?
So, I mean, there's not too much I can talk about, but what I can say is I really like him as a coach, as a leader. Yes, he's a very intelligent man. I think first and foremost, he's very, very, very intelligent, very logical thinker. I think he's a great leader as well. And I mean, I can't obviously speak for my other teammates, but personally, I view him in that regard.
Aaron?
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you are in town and you go to your local shul there, do they know that you're a player? And I mean, what's the reaction? They must be very proud of you. And how's that feel? How does that feel?
It's nice. It's really nice. They knew me since I was a kid. So going going to school and seeing everyone that's known me since I was a kid is always nice. And I just enjoyed going there. But yeah, I mean, people have seen the news articles and people come up to me, and it's nice. It's nice. It feels good when people are proud of it.
Really, it's really, really cool, Sam. And you don't dress on Saturday, right? You're not, or do you?
During the day, when it's a night game, I do. But like when it's obviously,
Yeah. When it's during Shabbat, you're not. So you wait till the sun goes down and then you appear. That's kind of cool. So listen, when we first got on, college sports has changed so dramatically, and it seems like everyone's talking about NIL all the time. And I would imagine, based on what I know, that there's a lot of nicely paid teammates that you have. And I was just wondering how your NIL fundraising is going.
yeah. Well, I can't speak for any of my teammates. Truthfully, NIL is a very, very interesting thing, especially because of just all the legislation that's going on with it, and the fact that there's certain rules that are just strange with it. But I mean that's just how it goes. They have to cover their bases on a legal level and on an eligibility level and whatever it is. In my realm, I'm very blessed to exist in the era of NIL because I get brought out to speak, and because I get compensated for flights and transportation, whatever it is. That could not have happened in an era without NIL.
That's correct.
So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. So part of what I do in terms of NIL is going out to speak. Other stuff, I do have an agent that I am working with in terms of getting deals, doing things, and I'm open to anything. NIL is a completely expansive field, and anybody can hire an athlete out to essentially do anything. In my realm, I make a lot of content. Thankfully, I've amassed a following on Instagram and on TikTok. So I'm about 17,000 followers on Instagram and 6,000 on TikTok.
So it's growing. Good for you.
And yeah. So that obviously helps because makes you more notable. Makes just everything in terms of connecting with brands easier.
Right.
I did have my first brand deal with a suit brand called Twillery. So but obviously I'm working on getting into more with that space, when it comes to things, because thankfully with the community that I'm in, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I also think that there's a lot of unseen opportunity within NIL. There's a lot of potential. I think that hasn't been
right. So I just
not just in my case, but like in any case.
Hey Sam, just to make sure everybody here knows what NIL is: name, image, and likeness. And what it's done, this is the third year, it allows players actually to earn money for their name, image, and likeness. And now, based on the latest lawsuit, players are actually going to be paid, I think in 3 or 4, Jeff, you would know, conferences are going to be paid. There's a suit that was settled that's going to pay a lot of these athletes a lot of money. I noticed that you wear number 39. I know that Zach Hyman's wearing 18, and I know that has meaning. What's the meaning of number 39? Why'd you select that?
So 39 is the number of things that are considered work with regard to Shabbat. So there are 39 categories of work that are forbidden on Shabbat. And I thought it was suiting, considering when college football is played and the fact that I won't play on Shabbat, to wear number 39 as a symbol of commitment.
Was football on the list?
Well, it's not on the list, but there's
okay. I'm just being a little cheeky.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you a couple questions here, because we're going to run out of time. So I want to try to get these in. But first of all, what are you studying? And kind of as you look down the road here, what's your career pursuit? And then this is, we're in a special time. I think a time when a lot of us as Jews are concerned with anti-Semitism, and what's going on in America and also around the globe. How do you see the role that you have right now helping that cause? Obviously, you're playing with a lot of non-Jews, and you are, you're an exception to the rule here. Do you see that you have an opportunity, given where you are, to play a role in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'll start off by answering that question. When it comes to anti-Semitism and my role, that I believe, I fundamentally believe that, and I'm grateful for the role that I have as having the chance to show people, get to interact with people as an Orthodox Jew, and to show, people, kind of like demystify who we are, because the media or whatever it is can paint things, but people don't always get to see, especially in this part of America, don't get to see people like me in person. So, or interact with. And it's funny, I'm shooting a video right now with my teammates. Like, it's called "What's the Most Interesting Thing I've Taught You About Judaism?" And
Nice.
that's one of the main things I'm happy I get to do, is educate, and kind of like flesh out Jews a little bit more, because I think it's an important thing. I think education and getting the chance to really meet and have dialogue with one another is a really important thing, because it wasn't too long ago that Deshaun Jackson, he
That's
had
right.
his whole
Yeah,
incident on social media. And I think in respects that could have been avoided, but in many respects, like you have to go out and make a kiddush Hashem. It's not just for within the community; it's for everybody else to see. And I cherish that role. I love getting to show my teammates stuff. Some of them have helped come over to help set up for Shabbat, and they got Nechala. So I genuinely love that.
Have you experienced personally any kind of acts or witnessed them at where you're going to school? Because we're hearing a lot of stories from a lot of our athletes at the schools that they go to.
Yeah, not at Texas A&M. That's another thing I love about Texas A&M. No BDS problems. No like pro-Palestine, like very barely anything for that type of stuff. It's a great school in that regard. Like, they're very, very protective of the Jews. I had a lot of respect for the president and just the school administration for the way that they handle things.
Sam, what advice would you give to aspiring athletes that want to maintain their religious beliefs and practice, but still have a dream, whether it be sports or some other area? What advice would you give them?
I think the advice I would give them is to always be positive. And the reason I say that more than anything else is because throughout your athletic career, people may doubt, people may have whatever whatever they do. The primary thing that you can do as an athlete is to look at every situation with a positive mindset. Right? This situation something is happening for me instead of to me. And it's kind of like finding that dark in anything. I'm so sorry, finding that light in any situation, even if it may be dark. Because at the end of the day, that positivity and faith are essentially intertwined. Because the way you look at things on a large plane also influences how things do play out with you, how people treat you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Yeah, so the positive mindset, I can say, can conquer pretty much any doubt.
So in that, Sam, I've taken notes. Honestly, I have a highlight reel of some of the things that you've said, which was, all you need is a good Talmudic upbringing to make sure you can play football. I love that one. Show who you are. Stand up and show who you are, because when you show who you are, that's difference making. Stop asking things to happen. Act as if they've already happened. Eliminate the naysayers from the start. And something's happening for me, not to me. You got to find the light. So I think that is the beginning book for a rabbi. So I've read that you want to be a rabbi. Is that true?
It's true. Yep.
Tell me what that looks like for you.
What that looks like, I'm not entirely sure, truthfully, what it entails. But there's obviously a lot of study that goes into that. There's different levels to rabbinicism. Some are basic, like rabbis or whatever it is. I want to be on. I want to kind of look at like that. What the highest level would be is like someone who can actually make like rulings on halacha, on Jewish law. So that type takes a lot of time. But I think basic rabbinicism comes before that. So I don't know exactly how or what it's going to look like, but I can only hope that I'll be the first rabbi who's also an NFL player.
We hope you
There
are
you
too.
go.
We hope you are too, Sam. That would really be great. And if not, Ari Ackerman will take you as the first rabbi on his Florida Marlins baseball team. Okay, that would work too. Let me just say this, Sam. You were so thoughtful and so impressive. And you know, rabbi means teacher. I think you have taught us all a lot tonight. The fact that you look through that prism of positivity, that you follow right your heart, and you're willing to put in the work to make things happen. At Maccabi USA, we're all about athletes finding their heart and putting the work in to make it happen. As a matter of fact, 5 days, I think, or 6 days from today, a year from that day, we'll have our first planes going to Israel for beginning our training camp for Maccabi, for the Maccabi. And that is also where dreams come true for many athletes. I think maybe we should spend some time with, have you speak to some of our athletes about your positivity. I think it will be great. And I think I feel happy, Marshall. I think we should get him an NIL deal. We should definitely clothe him in Maccabi USA stuff. We got to send him some packages here. We need the world to see, right? It's what real Jewish athletes look like. They're playing football. They're heading to the NFL. I am grateful to you, Sam. And Arnie, I'm grateful to you also, and for everyone who showed up tonight, for taking the time to teach us, but allowing us to learn. And so I just wanted to say thank you very much. And of course, Evan, for being our super duper producer. And Arnie, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, well, let me Donna, let me close it out with a few things. First of all, Sam, I think with your perseverance and your conviction and your dedication, whether it be in Judaism, being a rabbi, being an NFL player, I think you will accomplish whatever it is that you decide you want to do. And, we're very excited to, before you get to that pro career, Don and I and the rest of this group of Maccabi, we can say that we saw you first. So we're really excited by that. And let me just say, thank you, Sam, for being with us and sharing this tonight. And kind of to the general group here, just a couple of points I'd like to close it out, and then Don, I'll turn it back to you to really close it. But we are in the middle of preparations for Maccabi. Almost all of our sports are in the midst of tryouts. So if any of you are interested or have people interested in either being athletes or volunteers or coaches or whatever, please get a hold of Marshall and Dan and the rest of the staff. There's still time left, and we'd love to bring the largest delegation ever to Israel next July. And Donna kind of opened it to me, so I just want to spend 30 seconds on Ukraine. While a lot of the world's attention right now is on Israel, rightfully, the reality is that there's still a war going on in Ukraine, and it's getting worse by the day. And I'm really proud of the fact that Maccabi USA is involved in that in a very detailed way. We will be sending 36 Ukrainian youth this summer to Camp Ramah in California and also Camp Ramah in Ukraine. We are starting to get some real attention, in fact, by national media on this, and this is going to be something that only grows in the future. And then we will be sending and supporting financially a number of kids from the Ukrainian Maccabi delegation coming to Israel next summer. So very proud of that, and I think everybody on the Zoom should be proud of what Marshall and Jeff and all of the leadership are doing relative to helping the people of both Israel and Ukraine. And let's hope in both areas. Let's hope peace comes, a lasting peace, just peace comes to everybody. So it's been an honor, Donna, to be with you again. We will be, we're going to try to do this every couple months leading into Israel.
No, right? We're going to try to do it every month leading
every month. Okay.
And so I think that was what I was just going to ask. Dan Kurtz, can I use your email? I'm going to give everyone your email. Kurtz at.
Yes, please do. And I'll put it in the chat as well.
I just did it. Okay, so what I'd like to ask you is, like, Arnie and I and Dan, we've been working on a list of athletes. There's so many great stories. I keep saying Evan's name because he keeps sending me the greatest stories. And so we'd love to, if you have any ideas, any suggestions of people you'd like us to include, maybe Zach. Sounds like Zach's going to be off for the summer. Maybe we could get Zach Hyman after he's played in his 7th game of the Stanley Cup. Please let us know. We're not shy. We'll call up anybody. And because we want it to be a fun, great experience and also a time that we can spend together. So with that, thank you, Arnie. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. And most of all, Sam Salz, thanks to you. And we will see you again. And next time you will be wearing not Chabad, you know what I mean, Texas A&M, okay? You're going to be wearing Maccabi USA, okay?
I got you guys. I got you guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Sam.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great evening.